Parshas Vayakhel. Looking over the Parsha inspired me to speak about Zerizus, alacrity, doing something without stopping, without waiting, not pushing it off. And we see how Klal Yisrael built the Mishkan, how they came forth to donate their different materials, 13 different materials, and the talents that they came to build the Mishkan, to build the Kalim for the Mishkan, with such enthusiasm and such a response. I think that was the last building campaign that had such a response. But they had to tell them that it's more than enough, and there's a question even the Mefarshim deal with, so it was more than enough. So what did they do with the extra donations?
Spare parts. And
so one Mefarshim says it was a miracle that everything was able to be incorporated into the Mishkan, that nothing should actually be extra, even though there was more than enough. Okay, anyway, and that is something which I hope that this week, when you're listening to the Kriyas Torah or learning the Parsha, you'll pick up on and you'll feel it. A certain enthusiasm, certain Parshas you read, and the Torah describes it in such a way that it sets a stage, it sets a mood. Like there's an air of suspense in certain Parshas, and this one is an air of excitement. It's like bustling. It's like if you're ever in Eretz Yisrael before Sukkot or before Pesach, and in Yerushalayim or in some other heavily populated religious community, there's an enthusiasm in the air. There's an electricity. Yom Tov's coming. Everyone's getting ready. That's what it was like here. They were getting ready to build a Mishkan, and so let's. I gave out chumashim. If you want, you could take a chumash. Otherwise, you could just listen. Okay, this is not from the Beis HaLevi. It is on the Parsha, but there is no Beis HaLevi in Parshas Vayakhel. I hope that next week we're going to start perhaps studying the Megillah Esther in honor of upcoming Yom Tov of Purim coming up. So, but Parshas Vayakhel, the beginning of Parshas Vayakhel just follows on Parshas Kisisa. And Rashi says, when did this happen? That Moshe gathered the entire Jewish people together to tell them about coming forth to starting donating them to the Mishkan. And the Rashi says, when was this? The first Rashi in the Parsha, L'machos Yom HaKippurim. This was the day after Yom Kippur, Kishiyarad min Ahar. When Moshe came down from the mountain, he came down with the Luchas Shniyos, and now he's telling them, he's gathering them, and they're getting ready to build the Mishkan. The Ramban explains the backdrop even a bit more. And the Ramban says that after the Luchos were broken, and then there was a certain distance, the Klal Yisrael was distanced. Moshe was the only one, he had this Karan Arpanav. Now Moshe had a glow on his face that he would teach them Torah, they would be able to see his face. Afterwards he would cover his face. And there was a certain, the Shechina was resting on him, and there was a certain separation that they were distant. Now Moshe had the Oel Moed that he taught them Torah. He took his Oel and he put it outside. And Klal Yisrael, after the Chet HaEgel, Moshe Hashem spent so much time with them because he went up for 40 days and 40 nights, and then he did it again to get the second Luchos, and the end of it was on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur he came down with the Luchas Shniyos, and this was the next day that we're talking about. So it says the Ramban that Kivan shenisrata lehem HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'nasan lehem Luchas Shniyos. Once HaKadosh Baruch Hu was merutza with Klal Yisrael, he showed that he wants to have this close relationship with them, and he gave Klal Yisrael the Luchas Shniyos, the second Luchas, and v'karasi my bris chadasha sheyelech Hashem b'kirban. So now they're back, they're accepted, the relationship is back on. Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to go amongst them in the Mishkan. Hinei chazru likadmusam, they're back to where they were before. Lahavas kilulaisan, to back to the lashon of kala, that they were back to being by the chuppah again. So that's where they were holding. The Shekhinah is going to be amongst them. This is an extra joy, another level of joy more so than it was before, because now even when they sinned, the Kodesh Baruch Hu still said, "I'm still accepting you back. I accept your tshuva, and I accept you back." I think the Sefer Kuzri, that's just an aside, it deals with taina that maybe some nations or some people want to say that maybe after the Chet HaEgel, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, yeah, it's true, Hashem gave the Jewish people the Torah, but then they sinned, so now He doesn't want them anymore. So now they're out. And we see clearly in the Torah that this is not the case. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Klal Yisrael the Mishkan and brought them to Eretz Yisrael with the Shekhinah, and this is definitely, HaKadosh Baruch Hu accepted the tshuva. Is there still an amount of atoning for the Chet HaEgel? There is. And it's still in every generation, all the Yisurin that we suffer. But Kodesh Baruch Hu definitely restored this relationship. And this was part of what Klal Yisrael wasn't so enthusiastic about. What are they? That they're getting back to Kodesh Baruch Hu. The part of this Rizos was, I once heard, and I saw this, I was looking at last night, the Kli Yakar, that was a kapara for the Chet HaEgel. Because when Klal Yisrael was chotei by the golden calf, when they acted with a certain haste, they rushed to bring the gold, and now this was an atonement. Now they're coming and they're ready to build the Mishkan, and now they're saying we're using that same midah of Rizos. The same midah, we're not using it for the tzad hara. We're going to do tshuva with that same midah that we used for the bad. We're going to use it now for the good. That's what's going on here. Let's see if I could.
They had help from their wives this time.
Yes, actually, yeah. We'll see about that, the involvement of the wives in a second. But listen to this Kli Yakar, Perek Chav Hei Pasuk Gimel, to the beginning of Parshas Truma, going back a number of Parshios. Okay, everything's outside for you today. I apologize, no copies. But the Kli Yakar says that it's famous that there were 3 times the word Truma said in Parshas Truma. So there were 2 types of Trumas that were Chatzi Shekel, and then there was one that you could bring as much as you wanted, and whatever one of the materials that was needed, whoever wanted could bring as much as they wanted. So the Kli Yakar sees in this 3-step truma as which ended up being after the Chet HaEgel as a 3-step kapara for the Chet HaEgel. He says like this. Let's see if I can find it. Okay. L'das Chazal Haisa Chumasam Zuli Kapara Al Zava Egel. Chazal say that when Klal Yisrael brought the gold and they brought all these ingredients, this was a kapara for the chet of the Egel. So he says, according to this opinion, we could explain the 3 trumais that are mentioned here. The 3 aveiros that were done by the Egel. 2 of them, everyone was the same, and 1, some people did more, some people did less. And that's why they brought these trumais in this fashion. The first one was that they accepted the Egel as a god. And they said, Eila Vayakhel Yisrael, as a power, as a divine power. Everyone who served it was equal in this. They all called it an Eloyah, which is also in the Sefer Kuzri, it speaks about the Shem Elokim or Elohim. It means a power. It's not necessarily God. Even other heavenly powers are called Elohim. So, in Adon, there's something that's a mastery about this calf. That's what they were accepting, that there was a power in this calf. So when now they brought the truma, the first truma, they're all the same in this. I'm now quoting from the Kli Yakar. They're all the same in the first truma, and it went to the Adonim. The Adonim were the sockets that held up the Mishkan. Everyone had a chelek in that. That Adonim is Milashon Adon. Adon is like a master. To be mechaper on that, they call the Egel that it's their God, it's their master. So now they're showing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they're giving that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is their Adon. It says that the Chazal say that they desired Ivu le'Eloyos harbe. They desired many deities, many powers. Eloyos harbe. They didn't want to just have one. Okay, it's an explanation. So this was Adonim. They gave to. They wanted many Adonim. So now they made from the gold many Adonim. Okay, it sounds like cute in the words.
They called the calf Adon?
No, they called the calf a similar word. They didn't call it Adon. They called it Ela Elohecha Yisrael. So that's a similar word to Adon as a power, something that's a power over you, that takes care of you.
It's not the same shorish. It's
not the same shorish, right? It's not. No, we'll call it loose.
Because that's what they called Yosef.
What?
Adon.
That he was
an ox.
Well, Yashar is an ox. Yeah. They called him Adon. Okay. So, that's the first kapara. They gave Chati Shekel. It goes to the Mishkan, kapara for what they brought, for they called it an Adon. The second one, they slaughtered. They brought sacrifices. Mashazav Chulai. They brought, it says, Vayizbu Chulai to the Egel. They were all equal in that. So now the second truma, the Mechatzi Shekel, came and it was used for karbanos, to sacrifice in the Mishkan. The third one, it says by the Egel that they took off the Nizmei Azav, the golden rings, and they came and they brought. Each person brought from their own jewelry and from their family what they had. So that wasn't everyone the same. Maybe a wealthier person gave more. A poorer person gave less. That was the third truma, that each person gave of their level, what they were able to give. Okay. Now, anyway, so this is why am I bringing the Kli Yakar? Because this is all a kapara for the Cheda Egel and what's going on. Now, there's another interesting Kli Yakar in this week's PARSHA. It says, interesting pasuk. It's a question how to translate the pasuk. It says that when the people brought for the materials, it says Vayavohu. See if I can find the pasuk. They came. Ha'anoshim pasuk chapez lamed chapez. It's right after Sheni. Vayavohu ha'anoshim. The men came al ha'anoshim, on the women. Now al sometimes means by, next to the women. So next to the women, it sounds like it's putting the women first, the ikar, the main ones, and the men came along with the women. Vayavohu ha'anoshim al ha'anoshim. Okay, so why is this? Ramban says that the tachshit and the jewelry belong to the women more so than to the men. So they took off their jewelry and they came first, and the men that were with them came along with them. The women were first, and the men were tafel, were subordinates. They came along, they joined with them. They were mitztarif, to join, to come together with them for this mitzvah. So, I believe it's the Kli Yakar, says over here that the women, the men, we understand, needed a kapar for the Cheda Egel. For the men, for them to bring, the men who brought jewelry for the egel, they needed a kapara. So for them to act with quickly here and generosity, they're going to gain a kapara from it. So for them, but the women, they didn't sin in the Chera Egel. They didn't need this kapara.
But didn't they give of their jewelry?
It was taken from them. It was taken from them.
That's the difference.
The Nashim, they didn't want to give their Tachshitin willingly by the Masa Egel. They don't need the kapara. So why did they bring it? Because still they wanted, because of their love for what was this involvement of building the Mishkan, of bringing the Shechina, Chibas HaKodesh. So they also gave. So, okay, he goes on to another, more arichos. But the idea is that there was a special place here for the women, that it wasn't even necessary for them to get a kapara, and they still came. And maybe they were even the first ones that the men were considered coming together with them. Second in the importance of here.
So this event took how long after Yetzias Mitzrayim?
This is happening right after Yom Kippur. Okay, so we're talking about Tishrei, the 11th of Tishrei, and they left in Chodesh Nisan. So it's around 6 months. Yeah.
So my question is, where did they get all this jewelry from? They were slaves in Mitzrayim. All of them left. I understand. They're given to them. So I find it kind of strange that the jewelry and stuff which was used by Mitzrayim for who knows what, all of a sudden became part of the donation for Mishkan. I understand you can go from here to here, but it's still,
It's interesting, they were all melted down except one thing. The copper that was used for the mirrors. Everything else was melted down. So it was cleansed during the melting process.
How
In
do
the
you know
making
that?
of the Mishkan.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The copper for the mirrors wasn't melted down?
No.
It was just
Specifically, it
hammered.
was not. It was assembled. It was assembled and welded.
Like, picture a mirror, it has to be very, very smooth, no? You could see
The mirrors were welded together. They specifically were not.
they didn't melt it down and
No, because then they wouldn't have been mirrors. They would have just been copper.
Oh.
They had to remain mirrors.
That's what you mean. I thought if you
And there was no shear to the labor
finish
either.
it very smooth.
There was no shear to the labor. It was however many mirrors you have, that's how big the labor is. It's
And that's I'm wondering, how is it possible? Yes, they took out from Mitzrayim. How is it possible that one had more than the other? Because it says here, give us.
How come some people are rich and some people are...
Everybody give, whatever they can afford.
Depends on what they got from the Mitzrayim. When they said, give me your stuff.
If you had a rich neighbor, you would look. If you had a poor neighbor, you were
I
in
thought
trouble.
that, once you're a slave, you get out, just you pretty well divide it.
They also got from the booty, from the Yam, right? From the Kriyas Yamsuf. So I don't know why, maybe it was a practical thing, or Hashem gave some people more wealth than others, but apparently there is such a concept. Maybe it was melted down, but there's a concept of elevating something, even if perhaps it was used for something previously, that was a previous life, not recently.
My thing was, how is it that some had more than others?
But in the Midian war, they divide everything equally. It specifically says to divide the booty. Here, there's no mention of dividing the booty. You just go to your neighbor and get what he has.
Look in the Soviet Union. Some people got fabulously wealthy. They all started off with nothing, and the next day some people got billions.
Anybody whose name ends with Putin all of us was very good. Vladimir Putin, Rasputin,
Okay.
Anyway, getting off the topic.
Yes.
It wasn't a Rus, right?
Okay. Now, this Rizos, the Mesilas Yesharim speaks about is a person's not delaying, they're not procrastinating, they're doing it the most efficiently, they want to get it done, they don't want it to wait. This comes from an enthusiasm. It comes from this is important to me. I really want this. I'm eager. And that eagerness is an attitude that was going on over here, that they really, really wanted to do this. And that's what cultivated this Rizos. And the Mesilas Yesharim says that if a person wants to work on Rizos, the outward actions could affect the inner feelings. So if a person wants to get to an enthusiasm in Avodas Hashem and for mitzvahs and for acts of kindness or whatever it is, they could do it, that self-generated, let's just say, enthusiasm, outward enthusiasm, and that will help them bring about an inner excitement as well. But the inner excitement is really what's the goal, that Hashem wants from us to serve Him with a hislahavos, with a fire, with a bren, that in the heart, that we have this desire that we want to do the Ratzon of Hashem, and that's what's expressed with Zrizos. Even though Zrizos might just be a madrega, that besides keeping the mitzvahs, you also are doing something with an extra enthusiasm, but it really is very, very meaningful in the essence of what's going on, because it's an expression of something, now a desire to do the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a show of Ava. When somebody that you love wants you to do something, you run to do it. You want to do them. You want to make a nachas ruach before them. You want it to get done. You want to have this relationship. And this was a tremendous schus that Klal Yisrael felt that it was a schus for them. Last night I was looking for a good story. Came up with a few stories, but so here is one of the stories. My wife said it's a sad story, but it's a beautiful story. This comes from a Touched by a Story too, Rabbi Vayakhel Spiro, and I don't know where he got it from, but page 226. The story is about Vayakhel Abramsky's Rebbitzin. He lived in Eretz Yisrael at the end of his life, and he was a tremendous guy in Talmud Chacham. Wrote a sefer on Tosefta called Chazon Yechezkel, and his wife always treated him with the greatest respect, the greatest honor, and took care of her husband. And now she was very sick, and she was on her deathbed, and her husband wasn't in the room at that time. She was with somebody, another relative, a niece, and the doctor came to check her and saw that her breathing was labored and she was really not doing well. And his expression showed her that he was very concerned. So she said to the doctor, as he was ready to go, she said, "Doctor, how much longer will it be?" He was taken aback, such a blunt question. And he said to her, "Not too long. It's not going to be so much longer." And apparently she was still able to speak. It was hard for her to breathe. She must not be able to speak so well. But she said to her, the doctor left, and she said to her attendant, her niece that was there, she said to her, "You see the jacket that's hanging in the closet over there, the long jacket? Please go, take it to the dry cleaners. Take it to the cleaners to get it cleaned." So her niece was going to listen, but she showed why now, like at this moment, the last moment. And she said to her, "I see that you're troubled. My husband's going to be sitting Shiva soon, and he's going to be wearing a jacket, and he's going to tear Kriya, and he's going to be wearing the same jacket for the whole Shiva. It's not going to be nice for him. He shouldn't have a clean jacket. I want him to have a clean jacket." And that's what she did. She brought it to the cleaners. So here's somebody, and they're in their dying moment. What are they thinking about? A yid. They're thinking about somebody else. And a person could say to themselves, how could I do? What could I do at this time? I'm so weak. But a person who has nediva slave, a person who was thinking about what they could do for somebody, so then there's nothing stopping them. There's nothing stopping them. Whatever they could do, in whichever way they could do, they're thinking about somebody else. And this leads us to a beautiful thing in this week's Parsha, brought out by the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. And the Orach Chaim, the pasuk says, this lashon which I just quoted of Nediv Lev, is found in this week's Parsha. And the pasuk says, towards the beginning of the Parsha, Perek Lamed Hey pasuk Hey, Techu meyetchem tshuma laHashem, kol nediv libay yiviyeha es tzumas Hashem. Anyone whose heart, what is nediv libay? His heart generates his coming forth, is generous of heart. Rashi says nediv libay means al shem shel libay nedavai, that his heart is what's driving him to be generous, to give. That's why it's called nediv lev. Okay. Nediv libai yeviyas Trumas Hashem. Says Ar Chaim. What difference does it make who brings the kalim or the materials for the Mishkan? Let everyone bring it. So says the Ar Chaim. You think this was just a physical structure here, the Mishkan? This was a house for the Shekhinah. There was a special kayach in this structure and in these kalim. Where did it get this kayach from? Where did it get this special potential for you to be able to house the Shekhinah and the kedusha in it? Says the Ar Chaim. I'm skipping some of his lashonos. Yavi lebechina hanelemes im Trumas Hashem. With the Trumas Hashem, it will bring to this sublime level of what the Mishkan was. Ubira akasav miu asher yeviyah. Who should bring it? V'yamar, it says, kol nediv libay. Perush ha'isa davar min asiyas aleiv. Asher yidvenu libay litzad. Somebody who does it because of his uplifted heart, that his heart is causing him to be generous. Litzad his nayos haruchnius hashaychein belev b'cheshek hadavar. There is something in his heart that's a fire that's lit, that's bringing the cheshek, the desire. Yafil b'muskal nelam. That will have an effect on the physical ingredients here that are being contributed. Im yavi, says Ar Chaim, here's the punchline. Im yavi atshuma b'loy nativ slave. If they would bring you without this, ein zeh pal b'muskal. It would have no effect. It wouldn't have the same kayach. Now, I once had this hara on my own, and afterwards I found it in the Sichas Musar from Rabbi Shmulevitz in Parshas Noach. So therefore, I doubt whether it was my own thought or not. Maybe I saw it there first, I don't know. But for years I thought it was my own idea. Maybe it was. In Parshas Noach, if you look in Sichas Musar from Rabbi Shmulevitz, he says this idea. We find in the end of Parshas Bereshis that Noach didn't have children till much later than the generations before him. I think he was 500 years old. Nobody before him that is mentioned didn't have children until they were 500 years old. Can you imagine? 500 years he was childless. You can't imagine.
That's what lived that long.
Well, no one lives that long. Why was this? So Rashi tells us, Amar of Yudan, Matam kol adaris halidu lekuf shana. Why do all the generations have children at 100 years old? L'masayim shana, maybe 200 years old, and he didn't give birth till 500. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, in Mishayim, if the children, Hashem said, I can't predetermine what his children will be. Are his children going to be Rishayim or are his children going to be Tzaddikim? If they're Rishayim, they'll get wiped out. B'mayim, in the Mabul. B'ral Tzaddik Zeh. That's not going to be good for him, that his children will get killed in the Mabul. So, if they're Tzaddikim, then I'll be Matriach Noach. I'll cause him extra difficulty in building the Teva. Why? Because if they're born, if they didn't wait till he was 500 and he had children, so let's say he had children when he was 100 years old. So by now, those children could be 400 years old already. And the Mabul happened 100 years later. So they would be already 500 years old. Now they could be great-grandfathers already. That means he's going to have a whole tribe of people. It's going to be a big tircha for him. It's going to be difficult for him to build a teva for so many people. So Hashem, Kavash is Mayanai. He didn't give him children. So Hashem arranged it, that before the Mabul, even his oldest child was not yet Roy for Einshin B'dei Shemayim. He wasn't punishable in heaven, because before Matan Torah, you needed to reach the age of 100 before you became Roy to get Einish B'dei Shemayim. You didn't get punished with hands of heaven, so you're 100 years old. So now, the question struck me.
It's a long adolescence.
That's right.
Why did you wait?
Imagine. If Noach had children and they were tzaddikim and they were right to be saved, so what's the question? Because Baruch Hu is going to cause them a big tircha to build a teva. It's going to be very hard for him to build this whole teva by himself, that he's working on building the teva for himself, and now there's going to be so many more people in the teva, such a big tircha. So what's the question?
Why don't they help them?
Why can't they help him? There's more people, there's more tzaddikim, so let them help build the teva.
They were too old.
Yeah. So, why couldn't they help him?
Child labor laws. They weren't 100 yet.
So what you see from here is that Noach had to be the one to build a teva. If the teva was just a boat, if it was just a physical structure, so then it wouldn't matter who built it. But this teva was a capsule that saved the entire world, that had a koach of hatzalah, of salvation in here, that was the bridge from the world before the Mabul to after the Mabul. And Noach was matzah chen b'nei Hashem, and it was because of Noach and Noach's favor that he found in the eyes of Hashem, and with his chen, his tzidkos, it was because of him that he had ability to build his teva. But no one else could do it. No one else could do it.
Nobody else could do it instead of him. Why couldn't anybody else help him? It's not like...
Seems like...
It wasn't like Bezalel.
Right. Why it wasn't like Bezalel what?
What was Bezalel the only one to build? I mean, aren't there other people helping?
There were other artisans. So the Ar Chaim is saying that you're right. He was the chief architect, but all the people, says Ar Chaim, all these people had Nedivus Lev. And it was that Nedivus Lev which made it that they could have this effect on it. If they wouldn't have had this Nedivus Lev, this special koyach inside of them, it was coming from within what they were doing. There was something spiritual that was going on here. Then they wouldn't have had that. Wouldn't have been able to build the Mishkan. So, how is this relevant to us? I think that it's relevant to us in a way that we may never see. Because we put our efforts into something, sometimes with so much love and so much devotion, and sometimes with enthusiasm, and in the physical structure of the thing, what's visible, you don't see. You don't see a difference. What one person did, what another person did, it looks all the same. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what's the kayach haruchni that's inside of something that is totally immeasured by what a person puts into something. And now, this could be for chinuch, this could be for child rearing, for raising children, or for taking care of somebody. And listen to this amazing idea that the Sichas Musar of Chaim Shmulevitz says in the same shmuz there. Moshe Rabbeinu was called many different names. And the beautiful names of the midas of Moshe Rabbeinu, of good things that he accomplished, that he achieved. But there was one name, Moshe, that the Torah calls him. And that name, Moshe, was given to him by Basya, the daughter of Paran. And she says, Ki min hamayim mishisiyu, because I drew him out of the water, because I saved him, and I'm calling him Moshe. Says Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, you know why Moshe had the koyach that Moshe Rabbeinu had, that he was a savior of Klal Yisrael? And he was able, with Mesiras Nefesh, when Klal Yisrael, in different times, one of them was the Chet HaEgel, when he put his life on the line, and he said that you know, he said he jeopardized his whole future for Klal Yisrael. Where did this mysterious nefesh come from? This koyach that he had inside of himself. Because when Basya saved him, she saved him with mysterious nefesh. And when the name she gave him, Moshe, that wasn't just something that this act of saving him, she saved him. She found a baby in the water, she took him out, and now he's the same child that he was before. He's not the same child that he was before, says Rav Chaim Shmulevitz. He was totally different. Moshe, now he's Moshe, now he has a kayach because somebody took care of him with Mesiras Nefesh, that he has that kayach Mesiras Nefesh inside of him, that somebody saved him with that. He could save others with that same kayach. That was embedded in him because it wasn't physically visible, but that's what goes in. When a person has some feeling or something that deep that goes into something, that's a kayach ruchni that goes into it. That, like I said, we may never know. To see can't be seen with the naked eye. But you see here what made Moshe Rabbeinu was what went into him, and that's she was Moshe Nefesh. Her father made a gezeira against to kill all the Jewish boys, and here she is, and this is what she was doing. So in this week's parsha, a few more minutes, and we have some more gems here along the same lines from the Mefarshim here in Parshas Vayakhel. So let's just turn back to Parshas Vayakhel for a second. Another Kli Yakar says this. Maybe you could. The pasuk says, "Kechu me'itchem," take from yourself. In this week's parsha, Vayakhel Lamed Hey, "Kechu me'itchem truma LaHashem." Okay, calling the div libay. So what does it mean? Me'itchem, take from yourselves. Kechu me'itchem. So it has to belong to you. It can't be something that doesn't belong to you. It has to belong to you, and it's justly yours. But it says the Kli Yakar another beautiful idea here. He says, that each and every person should be mizdaris, should come with his rizos, with an alacrity, with enthusiasm that's self-generated. Sometimes you have a person until he sees that other people are doing it, and he says, "Hey, he's jealous of them." Maybe it's a good jealousness to do a mitzvah as well. But the reason why he's giving it is to be the same. That he wants to be the same as them, as the others. That's not called me'itchem, because he himself isn't the source of what's driving him to give it. The other people are causing him. So that's me'itchem. Me'itchem is that it came from his own generosity. Okay. So another pshat, the me'itchem means that it's like from yourself, because it's as if he brought himself. When he gives to a nativa slave, he's giving up as much as he can. Hashem doesn't want human sacrifice, so we don't kill ourselves. But whatever we could, what we could, we're giving up what we could. So that's like a person was makriv of his own guf, like his own self. Now, that's why it says me'itchem. So that was, on the other hand, we find in this week's parsha the contrast, and this is very famous. The Nesiim in this week's parsha are pasuk Lamed Chav Zayin. A few psukim later, are missing a letter in their name. It says, "V'Nesiim eviu es avnei hashayam." The Nesiim brought the stones, the shoam stones. Is avnei amiluim, and the stones that were filled the fillings on the ephod v'lachayshan. And the Nesiim brought these stones, these precious gems. When they brought this, it says their name without a yud. No, there's no yud. Hey, nun, sin, aleph, mem. Ha-Nesiim. So Rashi says, Amar Rabbi Nasan, Maro Nesiim lisnadev v'chanukas ha-mizbeach b'tchila. Later on, at the time of the Chanukas ha-Mizbeach, when they actually inaugurated the Mishkan, then they brought the Karbanos first. But now, when it comes to the preliminary efforts of building the Kalim and building the Mishkan and bringing the materials, they didn't bring anything till this was the only thing that was left to bring. Melech Mishkan leisnadvu b'tchila. Elakach amar Nesiim. The Nesiim said, Yisnadvu tzibor mashin isnadvin. Let the tzibor, let them bring what they bring. Because they were wealthy, the Nesiim were wealthy, and they felt that whatever the deficit is, they'll make it up. So let everyone else bring, and if we can't give something, nobody else can be able to give it. But if somebody else can't give it, we'll still be able to give. So, Masha Mechasrin, whatever they're missing, Anu Mashlimin, we'll fill it in. Mashlimin, I said. Then the Tzibor brought everything, and it was enough. And the Nesiim said, what can we do? So the only thing that was left, they brought the Avnei Shayam. So later on, they didn't wait. By the Chanukas of Mizbeach, they learned their lesson, and they brought it first. But here, because they were Misatel, because they were somewhat... Atzlos means they weren't, certain laziness, hesitance. They didn't rush to do it. It was Nischasra Ois Mishmam. There was a letter missing when he saw him. So there's Pshatim why the Yud, why specifically the Yud. But we see that the Nesiim somehow a little bit they felt like they lost the opportunity because they waited, and the Yud was taken from their name because they didn't have this rushing to participate. They said, we'll give, but we'll give what's necessary to give, and there'll be something left to give. But they should have realized, they maybe didn't even realize this. Also, the SHMOS speaks about that what was driving this. There was a wonderful cheshbon, it was a wonderful calculation. They thought they're doing the right thing. They said, we are going to give in the best way possible. Whatever it is that's needed, we're going to give it. But what was driving this in the underlying, there was a midah here of a little bit of atzlus that was what's causing this to come forth. When a person doesn't have the proper zrizos, so then the Messiah Hashem speaks about this as well. When a person doesn't have an attitude of zrizos, they find many excuses. There are many obstacles. There are many reasons, 100 reasons why a person can't go do the mitzvah or whatever it is that they should be doing, because the real reason is because they're misatzal, because they're hesitant, because there's a little bit of laziness and lack of a drive, of a real rotten. But that's not what they say to themselves. They say, I can't go, I can't do, I can't give, I can't say or learn or whatever, because, it's this, and they have a reason why. So, but a person who doesn't let something stop them, so the azar is, they won't let it stop them. And they won't give in to these reasons. So listen to a beautiful story, and this is a book for All for the Boss. Maybe many of you have read it, and page 70. And this is about Vayakhel Yosef Herman. He had a business that was being very successful. The business that was being very successful was his Achnosas Archim business. But at this time, it was times of depression in America, and his other business, his fur business, wasn't being so successful. And it started to be very difficult for him to keep up his Achnosas Archim business of hosting 30 plus guests and so on at his Shabbos table and being the address to come to where people could trust his kashrus and know that he's more than happy to have them. And he looked at it as a tremendous schus to host guests. And whoever it was welcome. And one Shabbos, one week, and he would scrape together the extra money, some money that he could all week to be able to buy the food for the Archim for Shabbos, and he had previously been a well-to-do man, and now this was a time of depression. His business wasn't doing well, and his wife had used what she had to bake chalas, and she didn't bake it. She said to him, very worried, every Erev Shabbos, Friday afternoon, I didn't bake enough challah for the Archim. What's going to be? I didn't bake enough challah for the Archim this Shabbos. And her husband said, don't worry, I'm going to go out to the bakery, it's still open, I'm going to rush to the bakery, we'll buy some more challah. So he comes to the baker, and the baker says, Rabbi, Mr. Herman, this is your lucky day, because there was somebody who called in and he ordered a big challah for a bris. I don't know, I'm not familiar with this word. It's called a kitka, a big challah, and he ordered it, and he was supposed to pick it up this morning, and now it's almost Shabbos. He didn't pick it up. I'll give you a good deal on this. How much could you pay for it? He said, he looked into his wallet. He had 10 cents. And it was worth more than it is now, 10 cents. But he bought the kitka for 10 cents. He comes home, and his wife said, I never know. You knew you were about my face. You're able to get this tremendous challah for 10 cents from the orchan. But there was a person gives himself over and doesn't stop. There's siyata d'shmaya. A person doesn't know how's it going to work out. How could he do it? But he wants to do it. He has this tremendous ratzon. He's going to do the mitzvah. He's going to do it. And somehow, HaKadosh Baruch Hu helps him and sees it through. Then he could be able to do the mitzvah. Yashakach, we should all learn this week's parsha, this Rizos of Klal Yisrael, and giving them Divas HaMishkan. Yashakach.
Amen.